A recent report by Jordan Schultz claims that the Arizona Cardinals plan to try to trade wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Now, there had been speculation amongst fans and some members of the media that this might be something they look to do. And whether or not this is a good idea is a whole other question in and of itself, and something we'll probably talk about at a later time. And there are a number of implications about this. There's a good bit of dead cap if you move DeAndre Hopkins, although if they are able to designate it a post-June 1st move, the dead cap money isn't quite as bad this year. But there's also the question of whether you should actually try to trade someone as talented as Hopkins. But again, those are questions for another day. For right now, what I want to get into is what would Hopkins' trade value be if the Cardinals did actually try to trade him? In order to look at this question, I put together a list of big name wide receivers that have been traded since 2020 to look at how those players compare to DeAndre Hopkins and try to get a sense of what his value might be. Those players include Stephon Diggs, who was traded from the Minnesota Vikings to the Buffalo Bills in 2020 for a late first-round pick, a fifth, a sixth, and a future fourth, with the seventh-round pick also included in the trade along with Diggs. Julio Jones and a future sixth-round pick were traded from Atlanta to Tennessee for a second-round pick and a future fourth-round pick. This last offseason, Davante Adams was traded from Green Bay to Las Vegas for a late first-round pick and a late second-round pick. Also this last offseason, Tyreek Hill was traded from Kansas City to Miami for pick 29, pick 50, a fourth-round pick, a future fourth, and a future sixth-round pick. And then during the draft, 2 trades occurred for wide receivers with the last name Brown, one of which the Cardinals fans are very familiar with, Hollywood Brown. The Cardinals traded the 23rd overall pick and got Brown and a third-round pick in return. And A.J. Brown was traded from the Tennessee Titans to the Philadelphia Eagles for the 18th overall pick and a third-round pick. Now, the first thing we need to know is that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be nearly 31 years old at the time of a likely trade. More specifically, he'll probably be about 30 years and 10 months old at that time. And with the exception of Julio Jones, all these receivers were younger at the time of their trade than Hopkins will be when the Cardinals likely trade him. And this absolutely matters in determining trade value. Yes, I know Hopkins is a great player. I know his play style will allow him to be productive into his 30s, but it still matters. So taking all these things into account, I think the closest comp was the Davante Adams trade. Adams was able to command the 22nd overall pick and the 53rd pick, a late first and a late second. Now, comparing these two players at the time of the trade, it is again important to remember that Hopkins is going to be about a year and a half older than Adams was when he was traded. With all these things taken into account, I think the most likely trade value for Hopkins is roughly a late first-round pick and maybe an additional pick somewhere on day 2 or 3, maybe a third, fourth, or fifth-round pick added. And that trade package may not actually involve a first-round pick. It might be a combination of picks on day 2 and 3, like a second, a third, and a few other picks that add up to being the equivalent value of a first-round pick. Now, it's possible the Cardinals somehow managed to negotiate a better deal by creating a bidding war or finding another team that's desperate for help, but I think roughly a late first-round pick and a pick in the middle rounds is the most likely trade value for DeAndre Hopkins. Would you trade Hopkins if it were up to you? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please be sure to click like, and if you're a Cardinals fan, subscribe to my channel for more Arizona Cardinals content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Cardinal Rule.